It's the 26th of April 2026. Welcome back to another episode of my weekly market overview. Let's get straight into it. First and foremost, as I like to do every week, I like to just look at some of the juicy, interesting markets, starting with no other than Bitcoin. I've left the markups from last week on the chart. Clearly see this guy was, as far as I could determine, stuck in a sideways trend. There is some higher, low action and some lower, high action, but for the most part, it's just a sideways mess. For me personally, this asset, certainly on the 4-hour chart, is not tradable. It's even more flat on the daily chart, as we can see down here. Now, I did say last week, I was hoping it would break out of the range either to the top side or to the bottom side. It certainly has done that. And now that it's done it, if we look, it has been making some consistent, really nice, clean, high highs and high lows, which is really nice to see. As I did mention briefly last week, I can't trade this asset anymore because my broker, who I'm with at the minute, don't allow trading on Bitcoin because of FCA regulation rules. So it's a bit of a shame that I can't partake in this market, but it's still an asset that I like to track, keep an eye on, because it is quite a hot asset. A lot of people talk a lot about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. They're quite important assets in this day and age. So I feel it is certainly important for me to keep a track of this one and Ethereum. Hopefully people out there are getting some nice long positions off Bitcoin at the minute. Okay, moving on, we have gold next. Now this one, I've still got the drawings on it from last week. This asset hasn't really done a great deal. It has just been stuck in this really tight range. If we look at it from the 4-hour, also look at it from the daily, it has hardly moved. It's not really doing much. It's certainly not trending. So gold, I'm steering clear of. It is mostly a waste of time at the minute. Next, we look at Brent Crude really quickly. Now, this asset is certainly not one that I'm trading at the minute. As I mentioned briefly in last week's video, A, it's not really trending. It's stuck quite sideways. B, it is reacting quite strongly with what's going on in Iran and every time Trump opens his mouth. So I feel like oil, certainly as it's not trending cleanly, is just another asset to keep away from. So there's not a great deal to be seen with Brent Crude or West Texas at the minute. I'm just leaving these two assets alone. Next, moving on to the S&P 500. Last week, this one put in a huge push to the upside, as we discussed to some detail in last week's video. This week just gone, it's kind of fizzled out. It's more or less been sideways. It hasn't put in a big push to the upside. There hasn't been that continuation in momentum. Does that mean it's going to pull back? Well, I'm not sure, but anything that moves this much, you would expect it to do some kind of a pullback before it continues, if that's what it's going to do. So potentially over the next few days, we might see some downward movement on the S&P 500. Another asset I like to keep an eye on is NVIDIA. Now, this is one of the, if not the market leading stock at the minute in the US stock market. Unfortunately, it hasn't made any noticeable moves since around October 2025. It has been pretty much flat as a pancake. So there's not a lot going on with NVIDIA. Aside from the last few weeks, it has made a big push to the upside. It hasn't quite made 52-week highs, but if we get pullbacks, I possibly will be looking for for continuation trades on NVIDIA, as it's an asset that just keeps going to the upside. Microsoft is an asset that I was looking at last week. I mentioned how it had made this big push to the upside and made a new higher high, invalidating the bearish trend that it was in prior to that. Now, I'm waiting for a pullback of some type. I think Microsoft is a good buy if we get a decent pullback and then some nice big bullish candles, which we are in the middle of some kind of pullback. I'm not sure. It looks a little bit messy. Hopefully it goes a little bit deeper and then gives us some convincing big blue candles. At the minute, this is a little bit choppy. I'm not sure what's going on, but Microsoft is an asset that I'm keeping a close eye on because I do think there will be some nice buys. Quick mention around Tesla. I do like trading this asset. I've taken a couple of trades in this one. One of them was documented in a video a few weeks ago. Now, it has made, a bit like Microsoft, it has made a higher high, invalidating this bearish trend that it was in for several months. We have had a beautiful pullback, kind of like what I drew up last week. So we've had this fantastic pullback. If I see some big blue candles in here, then I'll be looking to go long on Tesla. At the minute, we haven't quite seen that conviction yet. So I'll be keeping a very close eye on Tesla. This does look really good. So it has my full attention. Moving on, let's take a quick look at the two trades I took last week. One was a straight loss and one was a 2R win. Starting off with my trade in the DAX. Quite like the fact that DAX was making this big push to the downside. It failed to make a new lower low at the end of March, and then it made this big push to the upside, probably also fueled by the US stock market making a parabolic move. I believe that the DAX would also continue based on that momentum. It made a pullback on Monday and then started putting in some decent bullish candles. So I went long. Price danced around break even for about 8 hours and then just tanked to my stop loss. So this was a fairly quick trade and it hit stop loss in under 12 hours. It is what it is. It was a valid trade according to my rules. It just didn't materialize into a win, and that's fine. The next trade that I took for a 2R win was my trade on the Caterpillar stock. Now, I like the way that the industrials sector was making higher highs and higher lows. This downtrend had come to an end and it was moving to the upside. I noticed that the Caterpillar stock was putting in 52-week highs. This blue line here represents the 52-week level, and we put in a significant high at the beginning of April, and then it looked like we were going to make new highs again. So I went in on a long position. I set a hard TP of 2Rs, which it achieved in a couple of days. I believe I entered the trade on Tuesday and concluded on Thursday. So this was a really, really fantastic trade. I'm still setting hard TPs because of the volatility in the markets at the minute. I don't want to leave money on the table, and I also don't want to get whipped out of trade. So I'm just trying to find that happy medium by consistently looking for 2R wins. It's a rule I'm going to stick with for the time being until markets settle down a little bit and start trending a little bit more sensibly. If they ever do, I don't know. But 2R hard TP seems to be working really nicely for me. Moving on, looking at potential setups for next week. There's a couple of assets that have my attention. Cotton is one of the first ones. It's made this huge parabolic move to the upside that we can clearly see even better on the daily chart. Now, the 4-hour chart has made somewhat of a pullback and we have had some bullish momentum. I'm hoping to put a stop limit in on Monday morning just above these candles here to see if we can get a 2R trade out of cotton. I like the way the price action looks on this, but I'm also conscious of the fact that it may be that the daily chart needs a more comprehensive pullback, and that might end up meaning my trade doesn't go too well. But the momentum is to the upside at the minute. It's parabolic to say the least. So if we can catch one last piece of this, that would be fantastic. So I'll probably be looking to put stop limit in on Monday morning during market open. Sugar is another asset that has my attention. It's putting this huge move to the downside. If we look at it on the daily chart, it's a parabolic move to the downside. We have had a somewhat of a pullback, not massive, but certainly within the 4-hour chart, we are structurally still bearish. If we factor this lower high here and this lower low, we are still within this range. If we start getting red candles here, then I'll probably looking to go short on sugar because this looks structurally really nice. We'll see what it does over the next few days. Another one that has my attention is the 1 to 3 year T-bond ETF, which I track reasonably closely. Now, this one has certainly been making lower lows and lower highs. It flatlined a little bit and now it looks like it's making the beginnings of a bullish trend. It has put in this higher high here, which looks something like this here. We've had a higher low and potentially we're looking to make a higher high. If we are, I'd like to try and catch a small piece of this pie. So I'm possibly looking to put a stop order in on Monday morning to see if we can catch some of this bullish price action. A very, very quick look at the US stock market, which is an asset class that I'm starting to really enjoy tracking and executing trades within. Starting with the tech sector, obviously very parabolic at the moment, making 52-week highs as indicated by the breach of this green line here. So again, we need a pullback. I talked a lot about pullbacks in last week's video, so I won't go over old ground, but the tech sector is on the upside and we need some of those stocks to start having a bit of a breather. So it gives an opportunity for people like me and look for pullbacks to get into those trades. The communication sector has made this parabolic move to the upside, and we have had a fantastic pullback as well. So this is a sector in which we could look for bullish continuation. So I'll be keeping an eye on some of the market leading stocks within the communication sector to see if we can get some continuations for potential bullish positions. Now, this is my favorite sector going into this weekend and analyzing these charts. This is the consumer discretionary sector. It sticks out like a sore thumb. It was making consistent lower lows and lower highs. This is the sector in which Tesla resides. So we got some nice shorts. I believe it was within this push to the downside. Now we have had this parabolic move to the upside and a pullback. So I'll be looking for bullish trades potentially within the consumer discretionary sector. Tesla is one that we already briefly mentioned earlier on, so I won't cover old ground. Another one worth mention is Marriott International. This is a stock that is making 52-week highs. It has already made highs last week. It's done a pullback. I think there's potential for long opportunities on Marriott stock, so I'll be watching this one. Next, we have another stock that has flagged up several times on my radar, but I'm yet to take a decent trade on it, is ROST Stores. Now, this one has been making consistent 52-week highs for some time now. It's currently in a pullback. If we get some big green candles, this is another one that I want to get a couple of bullish trades on. I'm keeping an eye on this one closely as well. The finance sector is another sector which has made a big push to the upside and a pullback as well. I haven't yet done it yet today. I haven't had an opportunity, but maybe tomorrow morning I'll do some screening within the finance sector to see if there's opportunities to go long on any of the market leading stocks within the finance sector. That's it this week. I'm feeling positive. I got a positive outcome last week with one loss, but then a 2R win that balanced the books nicely and got me into profit. So again, another good week. I'm grateful and humble as always. Now looking forward to next week. Just tread carefully. The markets are obviously very volatile with what's going on in the world. There's always something going on in the world, but at the moment things seem particularly spiky. So I'm just being careful. I'm setting those hard TPs and just being very, very selective over what I trade. Yeah, again, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you on the next one.